Okay. Here's my plan for today is I want to figure out how to build a scope of work, which for us is also our budget and the different steps that we go through. And so, starting with what is a scope of work? Well, it's four things. One, it's project vision. So this is where you take the notes and show everybody that's going to be coming on that project and yourself, really, what the vision for that deal is, what the vision for that project is. Two, it's job detail. So each project has different jobs that you do, different tasks that you do, like LVP flooring is a job, framing is a job, and the details of what do you expect from that job. And so is that LVP flooring throughout the entire house. Don't use transitions from one room to the next. Those would be different details that you would put into each job. It's a budget. And so each one of these jobs will have a projected budget. And it's certainly my belief that nobody really has a formula for this. There are things that you can get pretty close with, like LVP flooring is a good example. There's typically a price per square foot for that, but there's a lot of factors in flooring alone, which is one of the easiest things to project. But there are factors like, is it going to be run continuous? Is it a square house, or are there a lot of different corners, a lot of different angles? Is the floor level, or do you need to put leveler on it? These are all A, details, and B, things that affect the budget. And so budget is something that is really a goal that you're setting for yourself based in reality. But throughout the project management process, you'll be using that budget that you've set for yourself really to work against yourself. And then four, it's a PM tool. So you'll use the scope of work to meet with subcontractors, to inform everybody that's on the job site and change it as you go as the job changes, because it's our methodology that projects start with a blurry vision. You try to see what the whole thing is going to be like, but as you move downstream of the project, as you move downstream of the project, you'll hone in that vision. So, what are factors to consider? What are the factors to consider when you're making the scope of work? The exit strategy, that's number one. So, what are you actually going to be doing with this property? Are you renting it? Are you selling it? Is it going to be a wholesale? Um, is it a fix up, rent for a higher amount and then sell? Is it fix for safety and liability only and then stick a tenant back in it? Are you buying an off-market deal? Is the rehab simply cleaning it out, fixing a few scary things, and putting it right back on the market? These are all things that you need to consider when you're building your scope of work, of course. Two, what class of property is it? Is it an A-class property? Probably the type of house that you live in. Is it a B-class property? Usually nice rental areas, nicer homes, livable houses, maybe a little bit older. C-class area, these are houses that are a little bit rougher and a little bit rougher areas. Uh, Great for holding rentals long term, but it's not a neighborhood that's going to come around for quite some time, or maybe never. D-class properties, these are more like never coming around, maybe a longer runway to come around. But really, when I think of D class and C class, they're usually in the same neighborhoods. It's really about the treatment of the house. And so a lot of these houses, you know that you're holding long term. And ultimately, once that neighborhood turns, you might just tear that house down and build a new one. And so it's really not worth doing any serious renovation there. And so D class is really the strategy that I use on that property, which is more like only worry about safety and liability. Maybe you do a few small things to increase, to maximize the profit on your rental, but you don't go too far because likely in the future you'll just tear it out. Maybe the house has got some serious structural issues, not safety concerns, but there's structural issues, and it's not going to be worth it to tear all that out and redo it. It'd be more cost beneficial to just tear it down. So this I would treat more like a D class property. Whereas a C class property may have a future. It may be that that neighborhood's going to turn, and that C class property has the chance to become a nicer property in the area. And so every step that you take in a renovation is a step towards it classing up. Of course, you don't want to class up a C class property to an A class property today, because you're really just wasting money. You can really only renovate a property so much because it's bound by its neighborhood. And so if you put hardwood floors in a C class property, you're still getting X amount per rent, or X amount per month for rent. Okay, so now still on what are the factors to consider when making your scope of work. 3 is viewing type. And so there are some properties where it's pictures only. You get pictures from a wholesaler, you get pictures from the MLS, maybe it's got tenants in it, and you're not able to get inside of that property. And so you have to make your scope of work by pictures only. Of course, down the road, you'll probably get a chance to get on site, which we'll talk about soon. It's a walkthrough and it's vacant. This is great. You get to see everything that you need to see, and there's nothing inhibiting it. You can make a really nice scope of work there. The only thing stopping you from making a totally comprehensive scope of work at that point is the fact that you don't have X-ray vision. There are some tactics we use, some clues that we add up to try to see what we can see inside of those walls. C, it's a walkthrough, but it's lived in. So somebody lives there, maybe a tenant, maybe the seller, and you can't see everything. They have their furniture in the way. I mean, some people have all kinds of crap in the way, and you just can't see what you're going to be able to see once that house is vacant. And so you make your scope of work the best that you can. But the first thing I'm going to do after I can get into that property is a clean out, so I can really see what I need to see to focus in the vision, which is the scope of work. D, totally blind. I mean, there are some houses where Google Street View is all I get, and I have to make a decision on whether I'm going to buy it or not. And that's doable. Usually there are things that you can find on a totally blind deal. There are some clues that you can add up. Of course, not anywhere near doing a vacant walkthrough, but you make your price reflect the fact that it's a totally blind deal. And sometimes those are the best deals. And so you got to learn how to make a scope of work on a totally blind deal. Okay, so, typically you can see the outside of a property. If worst case scenario, you can drive by it. And in almost every case, the shape of the outside of the property is the same as the shape of the inside of the property. And so you can make some reasonable assumptions based on what you can see outside. And, so once again, sometimes the totally blind deals are the best, because if you are confident that from the outside you can make a fairly accurate judgment of the inside, the person selling it is not, and you can usually get your best deal there. And so going back a little bit here to what is a scope of work. Well, a scope of work is going to, yes, help me manage the project. It's going to help me cast a vision. It's going to, I'm going to give job details. I'm going to create a budget for myself. But this is also my number one tool in creating deals for myself, or getting better deals, or getting the appropriate deal on a property. So the levels or stages of scopes of work. So there are different scenarios to consider here. So I have a couple of scopes of work I have to do in the next couple days, and there are 3 different scenarios. One scenario is a turnover. It's a house that I own, and the tenant moved out. They wrecked the property like they sometimes do. I own it. I'm going to do something with the property to profit, even if I'm going to sell the property because I don't want to deal with it anymore. I'm still going to go in there and do something. There is going to be some work done of some sort to get it to market and maximize it. That's not what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to put a renter back in there. So now I need to decide, am I going to go level it up, or am I going to do safety and liability and just get it back to the market? Okay, but the point here is I own that one already. I'm doing something to it. Okay, and another deal or another scope that I need to do later on today actually is a scope on a property that's not yet purchased. And so I have seen photos of it, and I have done what we'll call an off-site scope of work. And today I'm moving on to an on-site, which I'm going to explain to you the stages here. I just want you to understand the different properties and why some of these get all of the stages and some of them don't. So this property I'm going to look at today as, am I going to buy it? And then a third property that I need to look at this week is something that has already been purchased, and we've done our preliminary scopes of work, and now I'm going to go confirm it. And we're actually in project now. And then one more scope of work that I need to do is a property that somebody sent me a deal, and I need to look at the pictures that they sent me, and I think they sent me some videos as well, and I need to determine if I want to take next steps on this. Okay, so let's go back to what are the stages or levels of a scope of work. Well, there's really three. There's an offsite, an on-site, and three is the office block, as we call it, which would be in project. And so to understand what the office block is, you'd have to understand what our all of our systems are and the names for them, which I don't expect today. So let's just say that the office block means in project. I already own the house. I'm doing something to it. Okay, so offsite. This is that property that I was talking to you about that somebody sent me a deal, and I need to confirm if it is a deal. Well, I don't have time to go to all of these houses every time somebody sends me a deal. I look at multiple deals per day, and also clients of ours look at multiple deals per day, and so we're not going to go on site to every one of those. And so we look at them off site, which basically means that on the MLS or a wholesaler, they're going to send you pictures of that property, and you are going to make a quick scope of work. All right. So really, I guess first, I might even say there's 4 levels here. That there's a quick glance offsite. So this is, I don't know if that's the right name for it, but I guess I forget that this is even a step, but I quickly look at it, and if the deal's tight and I can tell that it's going to be a $50,000 to $100,000 renovation, I'm not even going to touch it. Just move on to the next one and let them down easy, whoever was sending me the deal. And okay, so that's a quick glance offsite. Looking at pictures or street view or whatever. I might even look at the deal, and even if it had zero construction, even if they were paying me to do construction, it wouldn't be a deal. And so no use in wasting our time, because that's what this is about, is preserving your time. So that way you can really focus in once you know you have a project and you really need to detail out a scope of work. So quick glance offsite, and now moving to ballpark offsite. So I'm taking notes as I'm doing this. Okay. So now I'm looking at pictures, looking at videos that whoever sent me, and I am actually going through the different jobs that I think I'm going to have to do. So I'm clicking I say clicking because we have an internal estimator that we built. But anyway, I'm adding all the jobs from every phase. A phase is a checkpoint, and I'm adding everything that I see that I possibly have to do. That's my first step. Always add all jobs. Add all jobs. The biggest mistake that you can make is missing jobs, and then you miss big chunks of money as you're building your scope of work and your budget. And so add all jobs. And then I'm going to go back through and I'm going to double check that I added all jobs. And then of course, there I'm going to make sure that my numbers work. If my numbers do work, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to make details about what I expect to do on each one of those jobs. So, I'm looking at as an example, looking at the pictures. I don't know why I always use LVP flooring as the example. Probably because we have to do that in like 95% of houses. So I'm looking at the photos, and it's got old hardwood floors that are all eaten up. Some people might make the decision that they're going to refinish those hardwoods. I would not. I would most likely put LVP over the top of it. I can tell that the floors are wavy, so I know that I'm going to have to. Do LVP floors. So I've added that job, and then I'm doing the details, and I'm saying make sure that we level this out. Use floor leveler before we put the floors down. I do not want transitions from bedroom to bedroom, and so I want it to be continuous, and I want to use our normal flooring. And so if you follow any of our stuff, you know that we have normal materials that we use for every, let's say this is a B-class property. This is our B-class LVP flooring. 2 colors, gray or grayish brown. So now I have the details in there. I can use this down the road. So that's what an offsite looks like. Now, if my offsite tells me that this deal works, of course, I'm moving on now to, if my offsite tells me this deal works, I'm going to get the thing under contract or whatever the next step is. And then I'm going to move to an onsite. That's step 3. An onsite, so quick glance offsite, an offsite, making sure we're in the ballpark, get the thing under contract. And now I'm going to an on-site strike. I'm finding out if we're in the strike zone. So this on-site, I'm going to take the scope of work that I built in the off-site, and I'm going to go to the site, and so I'm going to take the scope of work that we built off-site. I'm going to go to this project, and I'm going to figure out A, if I missed anything, and B, if I need to adjust the details of the things that I did add. Maybe I find out that, man, those floors are way wavier than I thought. Or maybe I find out, you know what, those hardwoods aren't as bad as I thought, and actually they're pretty easily refinishable. And I think I'll just do that because it's going to be cheaper. Or, you know what, I'll do it in these 4 rooms, but in these 2 back bedrooms, I'm going to throw in some LVP because the floors are beyond repair. And I've decided that strategy is the most profitable way to do this project, just as an example. So I'm changing up the notes. Once again, when we get on site, it's either vacant or lived in, and that will change how clear you're able to get on this on-site scope. But this is the same thing as an off-site, except for you're going to gain more information by being able to see things with your own eyes. And so make sure all the jobs are added, walk back through, make sure you haven't missed a thing. I cannot reinforce this enough, that the key is making sure all the jobs are added. Even if the budgets that you set for each one of these jobs are wrong, at least you will have added all of the things. I mean, seriously, I've seen houses get bought and somebody forgot to add the HVAC or the roof or one of the other big 6 items. Okay, now you're in the strike zone. You found out that the deal still works. You feel good about everything. You go through with the closing, and now you're in the office block or in project. There's no going back. You pretty much have to do that or change your strategy completely. And hopefully you don't do that. Generally, the only reason you would change your strategy at this point is if you get into the office block or in project and you find something that makes makes your previous strategy impossible. And so here I am. I'm in the office block, which is really like a pre or post phase checkpoint. Phase is a checkpoint. Scope of work tightening. And so I'm in the office block. Now I own the property. If it's messed up in there, messy, hoarders, whatever, or just people left their stuff behind, a lot of times I'll do a clean out before I start my walkthrough. This is where, sorry, I want to go back and do something real quick here. We got the four different levels now: the quick glance, the offsite, the onsite, office block / in project. We've talked about the situations where you may not go through all three, I believe, but I'm going to recap that really quick. The property that I own already, tenants got moved out. It's a a tenant turnover. I already own that property. I'm not going through pictures off-site. I'm going straight to the office block, basically. I'm going to figure out exactly what I need to do and start putting the project into motion. I'm trying to get boots on the ground. Okay, whereas the one where I'm assessing a deal, whether I'm going to go under contract or not, obviously I'm starting with the quick glance, going off-site, I'm going through all the steps here. The one that, what's an example where you would go straight to an on-site? And in most cases, if it's a deal, you're not going to go straight to an on-site. You'll have a chance to do the quick glance and the off-site. So, okay, now recapping off-sites, add all jobs, verify those through the pictures and the videos. Once again, adding the jobs, and then add specific job details. Goal of an offsite is make sure you budget for every job you'll have to do, and be quick. That's another thing that I did not talk about at that time. My goal with quick glances and offsites is to be quick. You have to assess so many deals as an investor. I mean, you might go through 10 or 20 properties before you find one that you're actually going to go under contract on. There's a lot of things you can do to get better numbers than that, but that's not for today. So be quick, because you're going to have to assess a lot of them, and you don't want to get burnt out doing this. You want to stay on your game in assessing. Okay, still going? Yes. Okay, so let's see here. We were at, be quick. What is the goal of an offsite? Is to be quick and as accurate as humanly possible while being quick first. Okay, so then we move to the on-site to make sure that the project is in the strike zone financially. So the steps that I go through when I am on site is, first I walk the property just to kind of take it all in, to make sure I understand everything about the property. Okay, and then I'm going to check on my initial scope of work to make sure there's not, I take that back. I'm going back. I guess I'm thinking about the on-site as if there wasn't an off-site first. And so let's just act as if there's not an off-site first. And then we'll kind of add that back in. So walking on-site, I walk the property to take it all in, understand what I'm dealing with. And then 2 is I decide what my strategy is going to be for that property. Am I going to do a bare minimum and then list it, or, for rent or sell? Am I going to level up the property and then rent or sell it? Am I going to list it just as is? Maybe do a clean out and that's it. So those are, probably my most common strategies. And I need to decide what I'm going to do. Just other strategies would be to increase the rents and put it right back on the market. I guess that all goes back to the same. So I guess really there's 3 main strategies you do the bare minimum to get it listed for rent, or right to the market, or you rent it then put it on the market, selling it with a tenant in it. Tenant in it. Didn't mean to rhyme. Or you level up the property and then do the same, rent or sell, or rent then sell. Level up meaning you make it a lot nicer, or you list it as is for rent or sale. Yeah. So there you go. All right. So next is, once I've decided upon my strategy, now I'll start building my scope of work with that in mind. So, um, and at this point, I would then couple back up with the offsite. Maybe what I decided because I guess when I'm doing an offsite, I am thinking about what my strategy is going to be. And so it's confirmed or denied at this point. Once I'm on site, I really know what I'm going to be capable of. And so now I go through and I update the scope of work. So, remember, if we haven't done it already, you add all the jobs, confirm all the jobs. Biggest mistake you can make is leaving something off of the scope of work. Even if the budgets are wrong, even if your details are wrong, get it on the scope of work. And then 3 is I'm adding details, what I'm actually going to do, how much I actually think it's going to cost, quantities, so on and so forth. And then I am going to get media. So I want to take general project media. This will be, a lot of these steps are repeated through each one of these stages, because at each one of the stages you can see more. And so we're on site right now, but it could be you're on site and there's a tenant living in it and you can't see everything. Their furniture is everywhere. So once you own the property or the house is vacant, you're going to be able to get even more focused in. And so get pictures of everything. There's really 2 types of pictures and video that we're taking. One is the specific scope of work, video and pictures. This means that here is the job and this is what I intend to do. And so it's almost like you're talking out your written scope of work. And you have pictures and videos of each one of those jobs, almost like you could put a specific picture or video next to that line item. And then you have your general project media. And this is the same every time. And there's multiple uses for this that we'll go over in a little bit, but it just your same walkthrough. Maybe you have pictures from the exact same points at the property, and also you're getting your general media documentation of the property itself, like measurements as an example. So the goal of an on-site, since typically on this first on-site you don't own the property yet, or there's tenants in there or whatever, to where you can't really be manipulating the property, is you get as close as you can to focusing in that scope of work without having the benefit of X-ray vision. And once again, there's lots of clues that can actually give you something close to X-ray vision. And so you're looking for those clues. And, we've done videos on what those clues are. Okay, so now we're in the office block or in project, meaning we definitely own the property at this point. And this generally would be a vacant property at this point. I can actually get in there and do whatever I would like with it. Okay, and so the first step I'm going to do at this point is a clean out if it's needed. I want to have the cleanest property I can for 2 reasons. One is so I can see everything. There's nothing inhibiting my view. And 2 is in this stage, I'm also going to have contractors come in and give me bids. And it is just, also, we've done a lot of videos on this, that you just cannot break first appearances. And when a job site is disgusting, it even even the contractors that you have the most trust and history built with, they can't unsee that, and they don't mean to do it, but you just get the perception that this job, or all of the jobs making up the project, is harder. And so the cleaner, more inviting, uh, both, all senses here, vision and smell especially, the more inviting that you can make it, the better your pricing is ultimately going to be. Is it just seems that it's going to be an easier project. It seems that it's going to take them less time, and the time is where the money comes from. So do a clean out if you need to. It helps you see everything, and you're going to get better pricing. And on this is where you're going to bring people in, like your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural specialists, framing. So you're really focused here on phases 1 and 2, your first 2 checkpoints. This is typically for us where we do our demo, any framing, any structural work. This is also mechanical, electrical, plumbing. This is basically everything that gets us through a rough building inspection. So those are the things I'm really focused on at this point. You see, throughout, so yes, you want to make sure you know everything that you're going to do on the project, but what you find in phase 1 and 2 is generally going to uh, manipulate or affect what you do in the rest of the project. For example, you might find some damage inside of the walls that you didn't know was there, and that may inhibit your ability to do what you wanted to do on the project, or it might spend a lot of your budget right there, and you need to change what you're going to do down the road to save the project. And so I'm really focused on what's right in front of me right here, which is phase 1 and phase 2. So I'm bringing mechanical, electrical, plumbing. I'm bringing any specialists that I need to bring, so that way I can get actual numbers, or at least as close to the numbers as possible. They may give you estimates, they may give you bids. If you have an internal crew, you bring whoever your foreman, your smartest problem solvers are here, so they can help you to know what you're going to need to do here, and then you can estimate how much it's going to cost you. So open up the walls if you need to. Be careful not to go too far here. I have talked a lot about how demo really sets up your project for success. It's kind of like a built-in project management tool, because what you have demoed tells everybody that's coming there what you want done, at least to a point. And so when you're opening up the walls to see uh, what obstacles might come up, make sure you don't over demo, because everything you demo has to be put back. And also, if you, for instance, demo a wall and then you get an electrical inspection, well, they're now going to look at whatever was inside of that wall. Whereas if you left it as is, it's grandfathered in most cases. And so a lot of times you don't want to open up any cans of worms if you can avoid it. And so the, you know, be conscientious about your overall blurry vision before you start opening up walls. Okay, so also in this office block, or in project scope of work, you're going to do any what we call audibles. And so the way that we set up our initial scope of work is based upon our jobs menu, which is linked, and we have the same jobs and the same phases for every project as it starts, and those are set up in a way to make sure that you never end up going upstream, which means that, as a crazy example, which has actually happened, you go to do the electrical, but the drywall has already been put up and finished and taped and mudded. That is a classic example of going upstream. And so the base version of how these scopes of work are built will make sure that those things never happen. However, sometimes they're not the most efficient way to do a project, and so you have to do what are called audibles. Let me give you an example of a audible that might be done. Uh, Building a deck is in phase 4 for a lot of different reasons, but mostly to make sure you never go upstream. And but let's say that it's a project that has a front door that's really hard to get into, and the back door is off of the deck. There's no way in the back door other than a ladder or a deck, and you have you know that people going in and out of the front door is going to inhibit efficiency. So you elect to audible the deck into phase 1. So that way you get a deck built right from the start. And now you have easier access because you know that's going to save you money throughout the whole project and headaches. Example of an audible. And, another reason we may audible is because the crew that I have doing a lot of the work in phase 1, they're really good at, let's say, framing and deck building. So we move the deck into phase 1 because we know that if they do all of the framing and the structural work and the deck, we're going to get a better price efficiency because they're going to be able to bring their crew, set up, and do more work, therefore better price efficiency. So that's an audible. You are going to make sure you do all the audibles, especially for phase 1 and phase 2, right here, to really make your job, your project efficient. And so you'll actually, so this is your first pre-phase video, or sorry, not video. We'll get to that in a second. This is your first pre-phase scope of work honing. You do this at the beginning of every phase. So, after phase 1, before phase 2, we'll do this again, phase 3, so on and so forth. And so you'll do your audibles there, and you'll also redo your media. You'll update your scope of work as necessary. So let's get to the video thing. So we talked about videos in the on-site. This is similar, except for you can see more information. Once again, make sure you do your general walkthroughs as well, because you'll do these at the end of every phase or pre-phase, however you want to look at it. And the advantage here too is that you can, if you are one of those that don't go and check the contractor's work afterwards, you take videos from them instead of being on site yourself, which happens a lot for out-of-town investors. Having the process of a general walkthrough every time helps you when you have to tell the contractor to send you videos. Like, this is the format of the pictures and videos that I want. And this is, so you're always thinking about building relationship capital with these guys, and you don't want them to feel like you're micromanaging them. And so, like, for instance, one of my big pet peeves is when painters paint door hinges, or they don't paint the back sides of doors or inside of closets. So if I have my general walkthrough where, hey, I'm just going to send you an example of, the walkthrough that we do on this, and I want it to look exactly the same. And in that walkthrough, I make sure I look at the backs of doors and all that kind of stuff. I can then ask them to do the same. It doesn't look like I'm asking him specifically to show me the hinges because I want to see if he painted on the goddamn things. It's because that's just the way I do it every time. And, this is what I have to show to my investors, and it's just what they expect from me. And so, you make that part of the process for them. And so also, this is not really about managing subs, but it's worth saying right now that getting aligned with a contractor is how you preserve and build relationship capital. And what that means to me is setting expectations very clearly and wholly from the start, wholly with a W. And so the thing that we were talking about is this general walkthrough video. I'm going to make sure that before I hire them, before they give me a bid, I'm telling them, hey, this is what my expectation is for your payment. I try to pay very quickly. That is my goal. And so when you're done with the job or group of jobs that I hired you to do, I need to make sure that you know that I'm going to expect a video that looks exactly like this. And so I just want you to acknowledge that it's got to look exactly like this. So I want you to know that if you don't send me a video that's exactly like this, I'm not going to be able to pay you. And I don't want you to get mad at me at that time because I need exactly that thing. That's what my investors need. That's what they expect from me. And so I want you to know that you're doing that so you can build that into your price if that affects you in any way. But I am not paying until you do exactly that video. Okay, now you've set your expectations. You can hold accountability. Made a whole video on how you set expectations clearly and then go hold accountability without damaging relationship capital, which is your priority here, which is your priority and making profit. But, you do that through building relationships. Okay, great. So, uh, what's the main goal of Office Block? Get ready for boots on ground. Get ready to have hammers swinging. So you want to get all the information that you can here. Now, a couple things in project. You are going to deal with change orders, and they are going to affect your scope of work and your budget, obviously. And just because somebody's asking for a change order doesn't make them a dirty contractor. Just things happen in these types of houses. You're buying it, you're not able to have x-ray vision. Nobody does. You can add up all the clues you want. You're still going to find some stuff once those walls come down or the floors get opened up or, whatever. I mean, just recently we had, the power board, they wouldn't set up power because there was a tree that was too close and we needed to cut down the tree. I did not anticipate that. The city wants sewer scopes for every project we do now, and when they want one replaced, there's just like I can assume that that a sewer needs changed out just based upon the age of the property. We can do a sewer scope first, but it might be that, it doesn't look that bad to me, but the city wants it changed out, and that's really a tough one. But there are other things like that. If it was just that situation, there would be ways to handle it. But it's like, you could, of course, build your scope of work every single time for every possible thing that could go wrong. But if you did that, you'd never buy a house. And so really each one of these houses, like some things are going to come up. It's hopeful that all the things don't come up every time because then it never works out. But you build enough contingency into your budget that you can brace for impact on some of those things because they come up on almost every project. Or you could do new building and not have to worry about any of it. And, you should watch somebody else because I don't know anything about that. Okay, so change orders. They're going to come up. So what do you do when they come up? Well, you get an estimate or a bid for the thing that came up. In the video about managing contractors, I do have some tips for how you deal with that to make sure you prevent against escalating bids and also keep people honest. All right, but then when you get this change order and you approve it, you got to make sure you add that to the current phase or checkpoint, add it to your budget, move money as you need to, get money if you need to, look downstream to see if anything's impacted, and look downstream to see if you need to make any changes to preserve your budget. So let's just open up the walls, big structural issue, and it's going to cost you $10,000 that you didn't expect, and you got hit with the sewer that needs replaced, another $5,000 to $10,000. Okay, now your budget is really screwed. And so now your project is on life support. And so you make the decision that instead of putting in those nice quartz countertops, you're going to adjust and do butcher block instead. You decide that that is the way that you're going to save the money. And instead of the stainless steel appliance package from the big box store, you're going to go find some used stuff instead to save a couple $1,000. And, you find this way and that way to shave off a few bucks. Probably going to require more work from you, but it's worth it in this case. And so, question would obviously be, why wouldn't I do that every time if it saves some money? Well, it does save money, but it also costs a lot of bandwidth. And so, you want to preserve your bandwidth for other things, like finding good deals is where you want to spend your bandwidth, and setting up the strategy for your projects. You don't want to spend bandwidth doing things like shopping for your used appliances. You'll do one project a year, it'll be awesome, but you'll never build a real estate portfolio. So that's how you deal with a change order. Ongoing, at the end of every phase, you're going to hone it in even further, do any audibles that are necessary. And then, so I do want to say there are 4 parts, 4 controls on every real estate deal. There is the acquisition. There is, as I call it, the deal. So that's the acquisition. And then there's the strategy, which is basically the scope of work, what we're talking about. We talked about the strategy a lot. And then there is the work, or the rehab, which is executing the strategy. So, I don't just call it the rehab, because sometimes the work is evicting a tenant and getting a better tenant in there. 3, the work, and 4, the market. So this is putting it on the rental market, or, going back to the work, could be and getting an appraisal, so that way you can refinance. Some of that would come after number 4, which is the market, which is either getting the highest rent you can, or getting the highest price on the MLS. Or maybe, you decide to sell it through wholesale chains instead, because it's a property that needs work and you think that's where you'll get the most money, which sometimes is true. That's sometimes where you find sucker investors who don't know any better, which is not you, because you guys have been soaking up this content. And so sometimes that's where you maximize profit. Yep. All right. The market. Yeah. So the market kind of is what it is. If a house is going to sell for $300,000 on the market, it's going to sell for $300,000 on the market. You can do whatever you want. It is not selling for $350,000 if it's a $300,000 profit, or a $300,000 property. The market is the market. Same thing with rent. If it's $1,500 a month, you're getting $1,500 a month. Now, with the right vendors, with the right strategy here, you can get a little bit more, because that $300,000 is a range, really. It's like $290,000 to $310,000, and if you do all the things right and have the right vendors, then you will get closer to the high end of that range, and those percentage points make a lot of difference. However, not necessarily a place to spend your bandwidth. I think this is a place where you spend your bandwidth once, and that's finding the right vendors. All right, now rewind to the work. I think this is really about landing the plane. All of this stuff, all of the money is made in playing defense here. You defend the strategy that you set up. So the work, the rehab, is defense in my mind. Okay, then going back to strategy, this is what it's all about. Making the right strategy, the right plan of attack for every project, every real estate deal that you do. It's making a scope of work that prioritizes needs versus wants. We're not doing what you want in your personal A-class property. We're doing what you need to do to maximize the profits. Okay, and then number 1, the deal. That's where most of your money is made. If you get the right deal on the front end, it makes everything else easier. Now, your scope of work is partially how you make those deals work. A couple different ways. One is, since you're learning how to do quick scopes of work, you can assess a lot more deals pretty accurately. And that will allow you to see more deals, therefore find more deals ultimately, and not get burnt out. And two is when you learn how to strategize correctly on your scopes of work, you'll be able to actually use that to get better deals. I made a whole video called, what was it called? I think something like what a GC looks for when buying a house. And that's what it's all about, is how I use the scope of work and my findings to get better deals. And it's not even necessarily like get squeeze people to get better deals. It's like get the actual deal on the house. A lot of people think their stuff is worth way more than it actually is, and this will help you be able to make an argument on why it's not. So, uh, scopes of work, it is the key, and the scope of work is the key to getting a great deal, the key to a great strategy, which ultimately will take you to the market where you want to be, and the lifeblood of that scope of work is the jobs menu. It is linked. Uh, Use it to help yourself build a strong scope of work. All right. Good luck out there, investors.